Coming up today on News 3 Now live at 4, a historic visit to Dane County from former President Donald Trump. What notable Wisconsin voices had to say about it.
Plus, sifting through claims you hear in political ads to find you the truth.
And the other Scott Walker getting involved in politics, what he stands for later.
We'll have those stories and more coming up next on News 3 Now live at 4.
Monday at 6.
The impact of the black vote can largely change elections.
And I'm meeting with the local voters that can play that pivotal role.
We got to see which candidate is going to actually walk the walk and not just talk the talk.
We'll learn which issues are important to this key constituency.
Prices, food, gas, things of that nature.
Equity, access to health care, education.
And what they say each candidate must do to earn their support.
3 for the People, Monday on News 3 Now at 6.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Live at 4's special election segment, Battleground Wisconsin.
Today, both presidential candidates are campaigning in key swing states.
Vice President Kamala Harris in Michigan and former President Donald Trump in Georgia. Tomorrow, he'll campaign in Butler, Pennsylvania, the site of that first attempt on his life. After that, he'll be back in Wisconsin. On Sunday, Trump will visit Juneau, and we're expecting to hear from him at the Dodge County Airport at 2 in the afternoon. Doors open at 10.
Now, Trump's been focusing on Wisconsin heavily this past week. Last Saturday, Trump was in Prairie du Chien. Then on Tuesday, he visited Waunakee and Milwaukee. Trump's visit to Waunakee marked the first time in years a Republican presidential candidate has campaigned in Dane County. The county leans heavily Democratic, but Waunakee remains a Republican stronghold. And what we heard Tuesday shows just how important winning the state is for Trump's chances of returning to the White House.
If we carry Wisconsin, Donald Trump is our next president. It's as simple as that. Have to go where the votes are. You have to go where the opposition is. You have to come into Dane County, Milwaukee County, and southwestern Wisconsin.
We're going to win Wisconsin, and we're going to defeat Kamala Harris.
Trump's Sunday stop will be his 4th in the Badger State in the span of about a week.
We don't have a date for Harris's next visit, but she's also been focusing on our state and targeting a key set of swing voters. Harris appeared in Ripon yesterday, known as the birthplace of the Republican Party. Alongside Harris, the former Republican congressional representative from Wyoming, Liz Cheney. Cheney is among dozens of high-profile Republicans backing Harris this election season. Here's a little bit of what we heard.
January 6th shows us is that there is not an ounce of compassion in Donald Trump. He is petty, he is vindictive, and he is cruel. And Donald Trump is not fit to lead this good and great nation.
If people across Wisconsin and our nation are willing to do what Liz is doing, then together I know we can chart a new way forward. Not as members of any one party, but as Americans.
Cheney says Harris will be the first Democrat she's ever voted for. We're also expecting a visit from President Biden next week in Milwaukee, but that is not an official Harris-Walz campaign visit.
We have a response from the former president to the revelation that his wife Melania is pro-abortion rights. The former First Lady made the announcement Thursday ahead of her upcoming memoir. The former president says he discussed the matter with his wife and told her to write what she believes. It's in stark contrast with Trump, who openly takes credit for the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Now we have a statement from the Harris campaign on the matter. It reads in part, quote, "Sadly for the women across America, Mrs. Trump's husband firmly disagrees with her and is the reason that more than 1 in 3 American women live under a Trump abortion ban that threatens their health, their freedom, and their lives."
A lawsuit with national implications is playing out in Georgia. Democrats are suing Georgia's state election board after it made a rule requiring poll workers to hand count ballots. Democrats say this would create chaos and more room for error on Election Day. 3 Trump allies on the board approved the rule in September. after which the former president thanked them. That was despite warnings from within the Republican Party against doing so. The judge on the case says he needs more clarification from the board before he can make a decision.
In the days following this week's vice presidential debate, both candidates' favorability ratings are up. And one Wisconsin voter's description of the debate might explain why.
It was a pleasure to see two candidates act like human beings and respect each other.
That sentiment reflects much of what we heard from other Wisconsin voters, and it appears to be the same across the nation. CBS polling shows most voters say the tone was positive and that both candidates sounded reasonable as opposed to extreme. Though the results show a tie on abortion and health care, Walz led Vance. On the Middle East, it was a tie, and Vance has a slight lead over Walz on the economy and immigration.
Among the races for president and U.S. Senate, Wisconsin voters will cast their ballots in many down-ballot races.
That's right. That includes races for state Senate. In the race for a seat in Columbia, Sauk, and Richland counties, an ad making false claims about the Democratic candidate has gained some traction. Political reporter Will Keneally has this reality check.
This is an attack ad run by a third-party group targeting the Democrat in the race.
But Kieski looks out for number one, voting herself a 16% pay raise while on the school board.
This is false. Sarah Kieski was never on the Lodi School Board. Now, we actually spoke with the Lodi School Board administrator, and he tells us in the 17 years that he has worked in the district, he can confirm that Sarah Kieski was not on the school board. We believe the confusion stems from this Lodi Enterprise article about the school board budget. As a private citizen, Kieski offered a motion to raise school board members' pay. Now, the board approved it unanimously, but again, Kieski did not vote for it because she's not on the board. Now, this ad was eventually pulled from local TV providers, but the claims have persisted in local mailers. That includes this flyer circulating around Lodi, which incorrectly says that Kieski voted to raise her own pay. Now, they cite meeting minutes from that school board meeting. Now, those meeting minutes again show that Kieski was not on the school board. The race for this 14th Senate district is one of a handful of competitive state Senate seats that we'll see on the November ballot. Sarah Kieski faces incumbent Joan Ballweg. I'm Will Keneally with this reality check.
Thank you, Will. Coming up on Battleground Wisconsin, a conversation with political analysts about this week's top election stories.
And a breakdown of how the money Madison's asking voters to approve would be spent and what it will cost taxpayers.
We want to make sure that every child in Dane County has a warm coat to wear this winter, and we need your help.
Please donate new or gently used kid-sized winter coats at any Clinky Cleaners. They'll be cleaned for free.
And the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dane County will give them to kids in need right here where we live.
Don't have a kid's coat to give? Log on to Channel 3000 to make a financial donation.
Track our progress on News 3 Now and Magic 98.
Then donate to Coats for Kids.
Get an 11% rebate on everything at Menards. Protect your boats and recreational vehicles with FVP, RV, and Marine Antifreeze. It has burst-proof protection down to -50 degrees, keeping you protected against freezing temperatures. Get a gallon for $2.49 after rebate. Quaker State conventional motor oils help keep your vehicle running its best. It controls wear and tear in your engine and provides corrosion protection. Get a 5-quart jug for $15.99 after 11% rebate.
Save big money at Menards.
Are undocumented immigrants that are the least likely to commit a crime.
Meet Edwin Ramos. This illegal immigrant murdered 3 Americans. An MS-13 gang member, Ramos was arrested for a gun crime. But as DA, Kamala didn't prosecute him. Months later, Ramos murdered a man and his 2 sons in cold blood.
Are undocumented immigrants that are the least likely to commit a crime.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Every holiday season, you have in-laws in the spare, the twins in the office, and Uncle Teddy on the sofa. Sounds like it's time for a serious sleep upgrade. During the pre-holiday sale at Denver Mattress. Shop today and save because everything is on sale. Like the Queen Size Summit, now only $332.49. Shop our Doctor's Choice Original lineup starting at only $664.99. And get a $300 gift when you purchase any Tempur-Pedic. Or get 48 months no interest and free shipping. The pre-holiday sale, on now at Denver Mattress.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Hi, I'm Sue Jenick, League of Women Voters of Dane County President. Know who you are going to vote for and why. Think about your values and what is important to you and your family. Seek out information about the candidates. On October 22nd, the League of Women Voters will publish candidates' answers outlining their beliefs and priorities for voters.
3 things to know, part of News 3 Now's 3 Cares Community Impact.
Welcome back. Here on Live at 4, we've been taking a look at the referenda on Wisconsinites' ballots for a while now. And today, we're diving into the Madison school referenda.
Chris Stanford hits the streets to talk to voters and answers what they want to know.
I'm with News 3. Can I ask you about the Madison schools referendum? Can I talk to you about the Madison schools referendum? With hundreds of millions of dollars on the line this November, we asked voters, have you heard about the school referendum?
Not much. I haven't really paid attention too much yet. No, I haven't at all.
Josh, I don't know anything about the Madison schools referendum.
That's kind of why we're doing this story. What do you want to know?
Which schools are they renovating and why?
This is what the vast majority of the money would be spent on. One question, asking for $507 million to renovate or replace 10 schools. Shabazz, Chicasa Anana, Blackhawk, Cherokee Heights, Crestwood, Gompers, Orchard Ridge, Senate, Sherman, and Toki schools. The board considered their locations and other factors and gave priority to buildings with critical HVAC and plumbing needs. MMSD's website says, imagine updated classrooms with the latest educational tools, renovated libraries, and cafeterias.
Seems like a lot for 10 schools.
Any investment in our public schools, I'd be willing to support.
Is there anything you want to know about where your money would be going?
Sure, I'd like to know exactly what type of public school programs.
This is part of the other question, which asks for $100 million for operating expenses. The programs would be for 4K and early learning, multilingual education, middle school career exploration, and expanded extracurricular activities. Here was the reaction when we told people about the $607 million total.
A lot of money.
I don't think it sounds realistic. I don't.
It's ridiculous. People are already struggling and you're asking for more money.
Property owners would pay it all. The owner of a home in a neighborhood like this, if both questions pass, would pay an extra $3,800 over 4 years. Totally worth it to you.
It's worth it to me, yes. They're always asking for more money for Madison schools. That's not new. I used to own property in this neighborhood, and they asked for money for the schools. I always gave it to them. But I always really wondered what the hell they were doing with it.
What do you say to people like that?
I completely understand that there's a certain level of fatigue and strain around seeing your property taxes increase. As a homeowner in Madison, I don't think anybody wants their life to get more expensive. And I think that at the end of the day, we are defined by the way we show up for one another's kids.
Chris, thank you. The average property value in the Madison School District is $457,000. If both questions pass, it would cost that homeowner $315 for the first year or $26 a month. For the life of the operations referendum, which is 4 years, the price would go up every year. So $315 for the first year, $960 the second, almost $1,200 the third, and nearly $1,400 the fourth year. The district has a calculator on its website where you can put in your property value and it will break down that cost for you.
With just 1 month to go until Election Day, candidates are ramping up their efforts in Wisconsin and all across the country to persuade swing voters to back them.
To break through the noise, our political reporter Will Keneally is bringing us expert analysis about this week's happenings and what comes next.
And we're joined by our expert political panel, Brandon Scholes here in studio, and Dave Cheslevich joining us remotely. Thank you guys both so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So I want to start with these two very kind of top-line political visits that we've seen here. Trump visiting the blue bastion that is Dane County. What do we make of that strategy here? I'll start with Brandon.
Sure. First of all, both candidates, both campaigns, totally recognize the importance of Wisconsin as a potential tipping state that they will need depending on how their paths get there. So why come to Wisconsin so often? A couple of things. It helps with their base. It helps keep them motivated. It helps keep them ready to go. Trump's visit into Dane County was significant in that, he's listening to Tommy Thompson and some of the Republicans saying, you got to come here and you got to help us maximize the vote in Dane County, rather than Republicans going, we're going to lose, so, Dane County doesn't matter. They'll need 99 or 100% of those Republican votes. So that, for Trump being here, it's important. I think you'll probably see Vance or Trump or other circuits come to Dane County, Milwaukee he's been to. So, they're paying attention to the entire part of the state, as is Vice President Harris and her trip to Ripon.
Yeah, it's something like Dane County has the third most Republican votes just by total in the entire state. Dave, I want to turn to you. He's coming to the belly of the beast, Dane County here. Is that kind of a courageous move for him?
I don't think it's courageous. It's smart. As Brandon said, Tommy Thompson's been urging Republicans to not give up on Dane County precisely for that reason. You may only get 25, 26% of the vote, but it's 25 or 26% of a lot of votes. And I think the Republicans' goal is about that. They figure if they can break into 26, 27, something just above a quarter of the votes of Dane County, they think that'll be enough to help them win statewide elections. And the Democrats look at it the same way. Jim Doyle always said that he campaigned in Waukesha for the same reason. He wasn't going to win Waukesha, but there were a whole lot of votes in Waukesha. And if he only got a third of them, that was going to help him statewide. So I think it's a smart strategy for Trump to come to Dane County. I think it's a smart strategy for the Democrats to campaign in places that they know they won't win, but they just want to tighten up the margins.
Now, that was followed 2 days later by VP Kamala Harris, Democratic nominee, coming to Wisconsin again to Ripon. That's the birthplace of the Republican Party. Brandon, what do you make of that strategy?
Again, it's good for candidates to work their base and make sure their base is happy, but now you see Trump in Dane, you see Harris in Ripon. And what does that mean? They're making a point that they want to bring in Harris wants to bring in some Republicans. And so by bringing in Liz Cheney, a high-profile Republican who has gone against Trump, that's a message that Harris is trying to say is like, look, some Republicans are supporting me. The question is it directed towards Wisconsin and Wisconsin Republicans? And of course, there's some messaging there because, as you just said, it's a narrow vote victory and you need every vote you can get, especially from the other side. But I think it's more of a national message because they are playing the point, and that is Republicans, high-profile Republicans, Mike Pence, Liz Cheney, and others, are going to vote for Harris because they're opposed to Trump. Whether or not that is a message that sells into the ranks of those Republicans who have maybe not made up their mind or frustrated, it's a national story. Whether or not it has an impact in Wisconsin, it's hard to tell. That margin, it's too hard to tell if they're going to move some of those 20,000 votes one way or another that they need to win.
I'll say, too, I was part of the crew that was up there in Ripon, and we did see a lot of national reporters go to this event, more than we've seen at similar events. Dave, I want to turn to you, though. When we talk about this kind of audience for this, it's a Democratic event, but bringing some Republicans in. Who is this for?
Well, as Brandon said, I think it's for never Trump Republicans who maybe have sworn off voting for Trump, but they're not sure that they can bring themselves to vote for a Democrat, to vote for Harris. So, yeah, I think the visit to Ripon was deeply symbolic nationally. I don't think it was about Wisconsin specific. It was a national message to those sort of traditional Republicans like Liz Cheney, who are still very conservative, but they can't stomach Trump. And while they may sit out voting for Trump, I think this was an attempt to get them to actually positively vote for Harris as a way of trying to move the Republican Party away from Trump back to some of its traditional roots.
So we heard from the guest speakers introing, especially Liz Cheney there, this kind of idea that vote for Harris to support American small d democracy, kind of keep the Republican tact. We heard that from some local Republican leaders to the Iowa County Sheriff, former Iowa County Sheriff, for example. Is that a message that resonates with Republicans in Wisconsin in your mind, Brandon?
I don't think so, because Republicans will look at what Harris is saying on that front and maybe some of the surrogates. But they look at Harris's record, her positions on the economy, on immigration, her very liberal background, both in the Senate and California. That's probably what is the wall that prevents them from jumping into that, supporting her, voting for her, even though massive frustration that they have on the other side. Whether or not they can make that leap and go over that wall and all those issues, that's the hard part.
And Dave, too, this is turning to an area in rural Wisconsin, certainly. Does that energize any kind of Fond du Lac County Democrats up there?
Oh, sure. I mean, anytime your candidate comes to your neck of the woods, that's going to energize the local base. So I think it helps some. And again, it's to the extent that it was a state message. I think it was mostly a national audience they were aiming at. But to the extent that there was a state message, yeah, again, if you can narrow those margins in the Fox Valley, if you can narrow them in the WOW counties, just as Trump is trying to narrow the Democrats' advantage in Dane County, that's going to help you statewide.
Well, Dave Cheslevich, Brandon Scholes, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
And coming up on Battleground Wisconsin, a familiar name back on Wisconsin's ballots.
Who the other Scott Walker is, up next.
You've probably seen all these negative ads against me. Well, here's the deal. They are designed to tear us apart. But here's the truth. My life's work has been fighting on behalf of others. It's why I became a prosecutor, district attorney, and attorney general. I took on drug cartels and human traffickers to protect our communities. Look, everyone is tired of the petty, destructive politics. Let's turn the page and chart a new way forward. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Champion's Big Window Sale is back.
Do you have ugly, hard-to-open, drafty windows? Now is the best time to buy new Champion windows, because when you buy two, you get two free. Buy two Champion windows, get two free? I guess that means if you buy four, you get four free. Buy six, get six free. Buy 10, get 10 free.
Hurry, Champion's Buy Two, Get Two free sale is for a limited time.
Great job, everybody. Thanks.
Call 888-4CHAMPION or schedule your free in-home estimate online today.
I'm so happy. I just put this dress on that I haven't worn in over 10 years.
I just this morning made a new hole in my belt, so that was super exciting.
Why are women everywhere choosing Sonobello, the advanced solution for permanent fat removal?
I saw the results immediately.
It's the best I have felt since I was in my 20s.
My waist is tiny. I'm very, very happy.
I'm nearly 50, y'all.
And my abs haven't been this flat since before I've had kids.
For a limited time, take advantage of Sonobello's best offer of the year. Sonobello's board-certified surgeons use micro-laser technology to safely target and remove your diet-resistant fat cells for good on your stomach, hips and thighs, back, and so much more.
Check it out, snatch waist. Loving, loving, loving the results.
It will change your life. It did for me.
Call 1-888-510-6198 now or go to sonobello.com to claim special pricing.
Update your floors with Empire Today's $50 room sale. Buy one room, get floors for all other rooms for just $50 each. So when you buy one room, it's only $50 for laminate in the kitchen, $50 for carpet in the bedroom, and $50 for hardwood in the office. There's no limit. Buy one room and it's $50 for floors in each additional room. Schedule now.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today.
Discover a level of comfort you never thought possible. Discover stressless seating at the Century House. Designed to harmonize with your body's natural movements, it's the premier destination for relaxation and rejuvenation. Right now, take 10% off all stressless recliners, sofas, tables, and ottomans. The Century House, 3420 University Avenue in Madison.
Well, this November, Democrats in Wisconsin's 49th Assembly District will do something they never thought they'd do: vote for Scott Walker.
Allison Fergit explains.
Democrats in Wisconsin's 49th Assembly District will do something this November that they thought they'd never do: vote for Scott Walker. When Wisconsinites hear the name Scott Walker, they think about the Republican 45th governor of the Badger State. But he's not the only Wisconsin politician to bear the name. Did you ever think you would vote for a Scott Walker?
No. And after having worked in politics in the distant past, I swore I would never be a candidate either, but these things happen.
This Scott Walker is pro-union, pro-choice, and hoping to flip Wisconsin's 49th Assembly District blue for the first time in more than a decade.
I think of it as redeeming my good name, and it's got a long ways to go.
The Democratic candidate has faced some confusion on the campaign trail.
When I go door to door, I do get a lot of puzzlement. However, our voters here in the 49th are adept enough that they can figure out there are two Scott Walkers, and they're right now talking to the other one.
It's been somewhat odd to run against Walker for Republican Travis Tranel, who's seeking re-election in the district.
I told the real Scott Walker that I never thought I'd have to beat him in an election, but I guess we're going to find out if Tranel could have beat Scott Walker. So he thought that was pretty funny, as did I.
Although the race is getting attention for the unusual coincidence, the candidates are staying focused on the issues.
We've got to show half the population that we respect them as equals. And I'm talking about a woman's right to choose. If we try to place laws on women's bodies, we're automatically making them second-class citizens.
Inflation and the cost of goods is essentially the only thing people honestly really want to talk about. They're complaining about the price of groceries. They're complaining about the price of energy. At the end of the month, there's just not enough money to go around.
With less than 5 weeks to go, Southwestern Democrats are more optimistic than they have been in years. The 49th District has a new look following the state Supreme Court's decision that previous legislative maps were unconstitutional.
I think we have an excellent opportunity to pick up an assembly seat here. I feel positive about Scott Walker's campaign because we have an area now that is more representative of the people, and I think people are looking for some change.
Coming up on Battleground Wisconsin, a constitutional amendment on Wisconsinites' ballots.
The small change Republican lawmakers want to make to the document's text and why.
Sometimes the smallest cracks can cause the biggest chills, and something sinister is lurking in the shadows.
What was that?
To survive, they must seal their fate.
Not working.
With Feldco.
50% off Windows ends soon. Come now.
This fall, watch out for The Draft.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
After careful review of medical guidance and research on pain relief, my recommendation is simple. Every home should have Salon Paws. Powerful, yet non-addictive. Targeted and long-lasting. I recommend Salon Paws. It's good medicine.
Nobody wants to think about cold weather, but now's the time to winterproof your home. Is your house cold every winter? Your home needs foam. Are your heating costs too high? Your home needs foam. Do you have different temperatures in different rooms? Your home needs foam. USA Premium Foam is over 35% more efficient than ordinary, weaker insulation. Winterproof now and get 0% financing for 72 months.
USA Insulation.
Shop the largest selection of Chevy trucks and SUVs in Wisconsin at Bergstrom Chevrolet. Lease a new Silverado 1500 starting at $355 a month, or a 24 Equinox EV starting at $299 a month. Stop in or shop and purchase at BergstromMadison.com.
Senator Baldwin claims she's doing something about the fentanyl crisis and says she got a major fentanyl bill passed. But Senator Baldwin is lying. The bill's main sponsor, Senator Tim Scott, had this to say.
As the primary sponsor, I've never had a single conversation with Tammy about this bill, period.
Career politicians like Senator Baldwin are always lying about something. Senator Baldwin, she's extreme, radical, and wrong.
I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message.
Meet Sarah Kieski. You might see her walking around in her Woke Genius t-shirt. Radical, just like the groups that support her. Kieski supporters want to defund the police. Her allies want to give voting rights to illegals and make it easier for felons to vote. And Kieski is backed by a group that wants to let criminals out early. Want to know where Sarah Kieski stands? Just look at the company she keeps.
News 3 Now First Warn Weather is brought to you by Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor.
Discover a shopping and design experience as comfortable as the furniture. Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor. Schedule your free design consultation today.
Welcome back to Battleground Wisconsin. Voters will once again be asked to vote on an amendment to the Wisconsin Constitution this election, and this time it has to do with voting.
Braden Ross joins us now to break down what this ballot question is all about. Braden.
Yeah, so here is the question you'll see on your ballot this November. It's quite wordy, but it really comes down to only changing one word in the Constitution. So right now, the Wisconsin State Constitution says every U.S. citizen 18 or older can vote in their local elections. This amendment would change the word every to only, barring anyone who is not a U.S. citizen from ever hitting the polls. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, isn't that already the case? Well, the answer is yes and no. In 1996, Congress passed a law saying only U.S. citizens are eligible to vote in federal elections, so for offices like U.S. Congress and Senate and the president. And even though there's nothing on the books explicitly barring non-citizen voting in Wisconsin, in practice, it's not allowed anywhere in the state. But some local governments in other parts of the country have started to allow non-citizens to vote in some local elections, like ones for school board.
There's a huge difference between every and only, as has been pointed out by people in Washington, D.C., in Maryland, and in Oakland, and other places where they've allowed non-citizens to vote in local elections. That's why we're making that change.
Now, Democratic leaders in the state have argued against the measure, essentially saying it's simply not necessary and feeds into election conspiracy theories.
Thank you, Braden. Well, this week, candidates for Dane County Executive put forth arguments why each thinks they're more equipped than the other to tackle housing affordability. In Dane County, the median home sales price is more than 4.5 times the county's median income. And while home prices in Wisconsin have been increasing sharply since 2017, the same is not true for household income. During a student-led forum on Tuesday, Dana Pelabon leaned on her history as a director of housing and operations at Porchlight. Meanwhile, Melissa Agard touted her connections as a state senator.
We were able to get people into affordable housing that couldn't, because even if you can afford the housing, if you don't make 3 times the amount of rent, you don't have good credit, and you don't have references, you cannot obtain housing. And it doesn't matter how many units that I build.
I'm honored to have the support of the majority of the county board and local elected officials across Dane County. Through those relationships that are already existing, I know that we're going to be able to lift one another up and address the concerns that most affect you.
You can find more information about each candidate on channel3000.com.
To the presidential race, the latest polling of Wisconsinites from Marquette Law School shows no movement in the presidential race since the last survey. Vice President Kamala Harris maintains a lead over former President Donald Trump, 52-48, among both registered and likely voters. That's exactly what we saw in the last poll. The margin of error for both categories is plus or minus 4.4 percentage points. We'll get one more of these polls from Marquette before Election Day.
This week, Wisconsin Democrats and Republicans picked new presidential electors. It comes almost 4 years after Republicans from the state posed as fake electors for former President Donald Trump. On Tuesday, the party's legislative caucuses and candidates met to select 10 people from each party. The 2024 Republican electors include Fond du Lac County DA Eric Toney, State GOP Chair Brian Schimming, and former Governor Tommy Thompson. Democratic electors include Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, and Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez.
Well, this week, Wausau voters and election integrity activists took to the State Department of Justice office here in Madison.
Voters hand-delivered a letter to Timothy O'Shea on Wednesday, asking the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Wisconsin to open an investigation into Wausau Mayor Doug Dinney's removal of the city's only ballot drop box.
The letter claims that Dinney's actions could violate federal voting rights laws, intimidate voters from using drop boxes, and undermine the security of those boxes.
We need to make sure that at the end of the day, that there is no further conduct that occurs which could violate federal voting rights. or that could interfere with voters' ability to fairly and freely cast their ballots in the upcoming presidential election.
Leading the authors to the state's DOJ office.
I don't know what this letter says, but I appreciate your passion. I look forward to reading this.
It was confirmed Wednesday that the state DOJ was taking up an investigation into the matter. Activists downtown said they hoped the federal DOJ would follow suit.
You know, making it harder to vote is totally out of touch with any values that Wisconsin has. Donning a hard hat and moving a ballot box after church on Sunday is nothing but a political stunt.
In an interview with WAOW last week, Denny claimed the drop box was not properly secured.
For all I know, and all anyone knows, that could have been in the river. It was not bolted down.
He said this is what prompted him to take matters into his own hands and, quote, wheel the box into his office. In a press release, the Wausau city clerk confirmed that at the time the box was locked and labeled closed. It was going to be secured to the ground in the coming days before being opened.
I think the real crime here is that this particular activity, this action, is reducing the confidence that our voters have in our election process.
As of Monday, an official drop box was secured outside City Hall for residents to submit absentee ballots, payments, and other city requests. Now, you heard there what Denny said in an interview last week defending his actions to move the box. We reached out to the mayor for comment on this week's developments, but did not hear back.
Coming up on Battleground Wisconsin, we're looking at Governor Tim Walz's exaggerated claims about his visits to China and career in the National Guard.
Whether they're affecting the Harris ticket.
Every holiday season, you have in-laws in despair, the twins in the office, and Uncle Teddy on the sofa. Sounds like it's time for a serious sleep upgrade. During the pre-holiday sale at Denver Mattress. Shop today and save because everything is on sale. Like the Queen Size Summit, now only $332.49. Shop our Doctor's Choice Original lineup starting at only $664.99. And get a $300 gift when you purchase any Tempur-Pedic. Or get 48 months no interest and free shipping. The pre-holiday sale, on now at Denver Mattress.
Kamala Harris is going to significantly raise taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
Kamala's plan will raise families' taxes by nearly $2,600 a year. Under Kamala, prices have already soared. Now she'd make it worse with even higher taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
President Trump will cut taxes again. No taxes on tips, overtime, or Social Security.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Don't mind me. I'm just the flu. I'm quite harmless, really. And when people ask, but aren't you linked to dangerous flu complications like pneumonia, heart attack, and hospitalizations? I just say, but I'm just the flu. It's him. Who? I'm just the flu.
Demand more from your flu shot. Sanofi higher dose flu vaccines are proven to provide better flu protection than standard dose flu shots in older adults. They've even been shown to better protect against flu-related complications.
Don't get Fluzone high dose if you've had a severe allergic reaction to its components, including egg products, or after previous dose of flu vaccine. Don't get Flu Block if you've had a severe allergic reaction to its components. Tell your healthcare professional if you've had severe muscle weakness after a flu shot. Fainting has occurred. People with weakened immune systems may have a lower vaccine response.
All flu shots are not the same. Ask for a Sanofi higher dose flu vaccine. Talk to your pharmacist or doctor about Fluzone high dose or Flu Block.
I can honestly say that Cardinal has never let me down.
Cardinal is the place to go for any type of work that you need done around your home.
The kindness, the efficiency, the professionalism, the respect was amazing.
We were very impressed with their cleanliness.
I definitely recommend Cardinal Heating and Air Conditioning because of the professionalism, the communication they provided.
Cardinal will always be my first call for anything that Cardinal does.
I think we're going to continue to use Cardinal for a long time.
Coming up at 5, a local woman is on a mission to aid Hurricane Helene victims. Discover the powerful story behind her drive and find out how you can get involved.
Saturday night's the best chance for rain over the next 10 days. Coming up at 5, I'll use Future Track to show a line of showers and thunderstorms, who can expect them, and how much rain you can get.
And then at 6, a new attack ad is spreading false claims in a key state Senate race. Will Keneally takes a closer look with a reality check on what's fact and fiction tonight at 6.
Political pundits say Vice President Kamala Harris choosing Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate was a way to connect with Midwestern voters.
But a key Western Wisconsin lawmaker running for re-election is highly critical of Walz, and it could impact Western Wisconsin on Election Day. Ken Kozarowski shows us how.
Wisconsin Democrats say Tim Walz wasn't perfect at Tuesday's debate, but he got the job done.
He wasn't as slick as J.D. Vance, but the substance was exactly the kind of stuff people are looking for. The specifics about how you bring down the cost of housing, the substance of how you protect people's freedom to make their own calls.
But at times, the substance of what Walz has said has been inaccurate. In the debate, he says he misspoke when stating in a previous interview that he was in Hong Kong during the infamous unrest.
I have my dates wrong. I was in Hong Kong and China in 1989.
The Harris campaign says he also misspoke in 2018 when he said he carried weapons in war, when he never saw combat in his 24 years with the National Guard.
It all pretty well died down after a while because I think a lot of people thought that the exaggerations are not exactly major.
In the months before the debate, Republicans like J.D. Vance pointed out those statements, and Tuesday's debate presented another opportunity for Vance to do so, but he didn't.
J.D. Vance didn't try to repeat his own attacks on Governor Walz's more than 2-decade record of service to this country because he knew that it would backfire.
That's not the case for Western Wisconsin Congressman Derek Van Orden, a retired Navy SEAL who did see combat.
Tim Walz is a liar, he's a fraud, and he's a coward. We have to understand that Tim Walz is going to abandon his troops, which he did, knowing that they were going into combat.
But that timeline is incorrect. Walz filed paperwork in February 2005 to run for Congress and retire from military service. His unit didn't get an alert order until July, and the unit didn't actually deploy until March of 2006.
It is frankly a shameful disgrace that Derek Van Orden is dishonoring the idea of national service with his constant attacks.
In Western Wisconsin, Heim says Van Orden is using that criticism to solidify his base, but moderates may not be so receptive.
Using language such as liar, fraud, coward, I think for most veterans would seem just a little extreme, but that's sort of the sign of the times.
In La Crosse, Ken Kozarowski.
Coming up, a surprising endorsement for U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin.
Why a group that typically supports conservative candidates is throwing its support behind her. That's up next.
Welcome to Dwellings, Madison's best kept secret for beautiful furniture, sofas, chairs, and recliners, sectionals, and fun accessories. Shop our Fitchburg showroom today.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Fry Construction has done it again. For the 5th year, we won the prestigious Best of Madison Award, and it's all thanks to you. To celebrate, we're offering 29% off our exclusive Absolute Gutter System with any full roof or siding project. Our gutters are custom fabricated on-site for a perfect, seamless fit that's engineered to excel. Don't just beautify your home, beautify it with the experts you trust. Call Fry Construction today and let us show you why we're the best of Madison.
I remember coming home from school and pounding on the door, but my mother wouldn't answer. She'd be passed out inside. You know, my mother had a drug abuse problem. She struggled with addiction to prescription pills her whole life. But today with fentanyl, one pill, just one pill can kill. So I've worked with Republicans to stop the flow of fentanyl that's poisoning families across Wisconsin. I'm Tammy Baldwin, and I approve this message. This fight hits close to home.
My name is Norma. I'm a 2-time Trump voter. I will not be voting for Trump this time around. I'm voting for Kamala Harris. I cannot support Trump again because I don't trust him. I feel he's a liar. I feel he's for himself. I feel like he's going to take our country down a really evil, dark path. I want to be on the right side of history, and voting for Trump would be on the wrong side of history.
Republican Accountability PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I'm Joan Balwig, and here at the shop we have solutions both big and small. And that's why I fought in Madison for historically large increases for our fire, police, and EMS, and made sure that our small businesses had the permits that they needed to operate. I delivered millions for ag and rural road funding and created the one-day fishing license. I brought both sides together to make sure that our kids can both read and write. And those are both really big things, but you get the idea.
U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin is the first Democrat to receive an endorsement from Wisconsin's Farm Bureau Federation in more than 20 years.
Among the other candidates the group's endorsing, Representatives Tom Tiffany and Derek Van Orden, two staunch Trump supporters. Will Keneally spoke with the group's Director of National Affairs about what they look for in a candidate before making a choice to publicly support them.
So what factors into your calculations when you make an endorsement like that?
Yeah, so Wisconsin Farm Bureau endorsed Congressman Van Orden, Senator Baldwin, Congressman Tiffany, Grothman, Fitzgerald, and Stiles. And after reviewing our legislative priorities, our board felt that these legislators had qualified for Wisconsin Farm Bureau's endorsement. There was their support of legislation like the Dairy Pride Act, Whole Milk for Healthy Kids, and increased funding for dairy business initiatives set them apart as leaders for Wisconsin agriculture.
So Baldwin will be the first Democrat that you've endorsed in the last 2 decades or so. Is that groundbreaking for your organization?
Well, we don't look at it as groundbreaking or anything different than endorsing any other candidate. We believe that we support candidates that support agriculture, and whether they have an R after their name or D, it really doesn't matter. Whoever supports agriculture, we're willing to stand with them. You know, with 47 members across the state, there's going to be differences in opinions on who we endorse, but we all believe that, you know, even with an endorsement, each candidate has to go out to all their voters and make the case of why they should be supported.
And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. We really appreciate you guys reaching out.
We do have a statement from a spokesperson for the Hovde campaign on the Federation's choice to endorse Baldwin. It reads in part, quote, Tammy Baldwin has continually failed Wisconsin farmers. This November, Wisconsin farmers will hold Tammy Baldwin accountable.
All right, and we'll be right back.
4 years ago, rioters set this Minneapolis police station on fire, trying to burn me and my fellow police officers alive. Governor Tim Walz left us for dead. And Kamala Harris?
This is a movement, I'm telling you. Everyone beware. They're not going to let up, and they should not.
She raised millions to help bail rioters out of jail and supported defunding the police. Kamala sold cops out and put families at risk. Kamala Harris is too weak and too dangerous to be president.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
It's a great time to have RG Heating and Air Conditioning check your home's furnace system for safety and efficiency. RG services all brands and installs quality Trane equipment to keep your home running smooth year-round. Call RG Heating and AC today.
Kamala Harris is going to significantly raise taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
Kamala's plan will raise families' taxes by nearly $2,600 a year. Under Kamala, prices have already soared. Now she'd make it worse with even higher taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
President Trump will cut taxes again. No taxes on tips, overtime, or Social Security.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Growing old is part of the journey, even when you have heart failure. But when he had shortness of breath, carpal tunnel syndrome, and lower back pain, we wondered, could these be warning signs of something bigger? Thank goodness we called his cardiologist, because these were signs of ATTR-CM, a rare and serious disease that gets worse over time. If you see any of the warning signs, don't wait. Ask your cardiologist about ATTR-CM today.
Cheer like a game show contestant for the Best of Madison Readers Poll winners. No zonks behind this curtain, just gold, silver, and bronze. From food and drink to entertainment, home, and health. Come on down to Madison Magazine, online and on newsstands now. And the winner is Madison Magazine. Proud to earn 11 Milwaukee Press Club Awards for excellence in Wisconsin journalism. And the top prize for civic journalism in this year's National City and Regional Magazine Awards.
Welcome back to Battleground Wisconsin. USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack is at the Democratic campaign headquarters in Madison.
He's joining us live as a private citizen, not in his official capacity as USDA Secretary, to talk about the Harris-Walz campaign. Secretary Vilsack, thanks for joining us. What can you tell us about how the campaign is trying to reach rural voters?
Well, it's doing a terrific job. The Vice President and Governor Walz have been traveling in rural areas across the country. They've got a set of policies that I think speak to the needs and concerns of rural voters, whether it's housing costs or health care costs or the opportunity to defend reproductive rights. They also, I think, are spending a lot of time making sure that folks are volunteering, knocking on doors, opening up offices in rural areas. Having a presence at the end of the day is really, really important, especially in a state like Wisconsin. The fact that 750,000 doors have been knocked on, contacts have been made with a multitude of voters across this state, indicates a respect for and a concern about the rural voter.
Well, in your experience, how do rural voters decide on which candidate to vote for, especially this cycle when the conservative rural voters might not align with either former President Trump or Vice President Harris?
Well, what's interesting about this particular race, and I think you saw it yesterday with Liz Cheney's appearance, the Vice President's campaign has a broad appeal. It's not just Democrats, it's Republicans, it's independents who are now joining forces to essentially say that there's a very stark choice here in this election, not just on policies in terms of housing and health care and reproductive rights, but also on whether or not the Constitution is going to be respected and the Constitution is going to be followed, the rule of law is going to be respected. And I think that appeals to a number of conservative voters who might otherwise not necessarily be interested in a Democratic candidate, but in this particular campaign, this particular choice, they are gravitating towards the Vice President, which I think speaks well of her campaign and speaks well of the breadth of her campaign. So between that and the ground game and the policies, I think she's running an extraordinary campaign that speaks very directly to rural voters.
And you say she's running a great campaign with those rural voters. What is typically that big obstacle for Democrats when it comes to this group of voters?
Well, in the past, it's just simply not been present, not being there, not having offices, not having the infrastructure necessary to knock on the doors, to find out what people are thinking and to be able to respond to it. This is a campaign that's opened up offices in county areas that have never seen a Democratic office. This is a campaign that is spending a great deal of time with 16,000 volunteers knocking on doors, talking neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, to find out how people are thinking. We know that people are concerned about housing costs. That's why the Vice President has a plan to bring housing costs down. We know that people are always concerned about the cost of groceries. That's why she has a plan to reduce and to eliminate price gouging. We know that senior citizens deeply concerned about maintaining the protections that they now have under the Affordable Care Act. And we know that there are a lot of people who are deeply concerned about reproductive rights and the necessity of protecting a woman's right to choose. So a series of campaign issues, presence, volunteers, a broad appeal that appeals not just to Democrats, but to Republicans and independents, I think is the successful formula for a campaign, certainly in Wisconsin.
We have time for a quick question. Last question. We saw the Wisconsin Farm Bureau Federation is backing Senator Baldwin. That's a big deal since they haven't backed a Democrat in more than 2 decades. Will this have any effect on the presidential race and who those voters vote for?
Not necessarily, but I think it was a wise decision. Obviously, Senator Baldwin has been a great proponent for rural places and rural people. I've had the opportunity, obviously, to have a chance to visit with her and to see her work. She is somebody who cares deeply about making sure that there's adequate investment in rural places. I think that's why you're seeing the bipartisan infrastructure law. You're seeing resources being invested in roads and bridges and the infrastructure that's so important and necessary for economic opportunity in rural places. So it didn't surprise me that they made that decision. And I think they've backed a very strong and great candidate.
Secretary Vilsack, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
Meet Sarah Kieski. You might see her walking around in her woke genius t-shirt. Radical, just like the groups that support her. Kieski supporters want to defund the police. Her allies want to give voting rights to illegals and make it easier for felons to vote. And Kieski is backed by a group that wants to let criminals out early. Want to know where Sarah Kieski stands? Just look at the company she keeps.
In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. I cannot in good conscience endorse Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's former highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is too big a risk for America.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Senator Baldwin claims she's doing something about the fentanyl crisis and says she got a major fentanyl bill passed. But Senator Baldwin is lying. The bill's main sponsor, Senator Tim Scott, had this to say.
As the primary sponsor, I've never had a single conversation with Tammy about this bill, period.
Career politicians like Senator Baldwin are always lying about something. Senator Baldwin, she's extreme, radical, and wrong.
I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message.
My experience with Empire was amazing.
Real customers share their stories about Empire today.
You can bring people in the house and feel good. I was so pleased with Empire today that I have already recommended it to several of my friends. The price that I got, along with the service, the special attention, the one-on-one, you can't beat that.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today.
That wraps up today's Live at 4. Brady's in the newsroom with what's coming up.
Well, on Monday's Live at 4, Joker and Lady Gaga take on the box office. Will they laugh all the way to the bank, or will the punchline fall flat? Will Loper will show us. And next at 5, with election integrity in mind, how do we make sure our votes count? We're looking at the processes and safeguards we have in place here in Wisconsin. Well, thanks for watching us today, and we hope to see you back here on Monday. News 3 Now at 5 starts right after this.